Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV Alternative Media Television. It's Wednesday, August 10th, 2016. And leaker Julian Assange drops a bombshell on Hillary Rodham Clinton's face. A lot of people keep dying. The body bag count just keeps on escalating. There's been three prominent figures potentially murdered, and Julian Assange goes on to insinuate this, specifically with the case of DNC staffer 27-year-old Seth Rich on a Dutch television station. Check it out.
Donald Trump has had a disastrous few weeks. If you look at the polls, he needs a miracle. In the American political lexicon, there's such a thing as the October surprise. The stuff that you're sitting on, is an October surprise in there? Do you even know what you're sitting on?
WikiLeaks never sits on material. Whistleblowers go to significant efforts to get us material, and often very significant risks. As a 27-year-old works for the DNC, who was shot in the back, murdered just 2 weeks ago for unknown reasons as he was walking down the street in Washington. So
that was just a robbery, I believe, wasn't it?
No, there's no finding. So
what are you suggesting? What are you suggesting?
I'm suggesting that our sources take risks, and they become concerned to see things occurring like that.
But was he one of your sources then? I mean,
we don't comment on who our sources are.
But why make the suggestion about a young guy being shot in the streets of Washington?
Because we have to understand how high the stakes are in the United States, and that our sources are, our sources face serious risks. That's why they come to us, so we can protect their anonymity.
But it's quite something to suggest a murder. That's basically what you're doing.
Well, that others have suggested that. We are investigating to understand what happened in that situation with Seth Rich. I think it is a concerning situation. There's not a conclusion yet. We wouldn't be willing to state a conclusion, but we are concerned about it. And more importantly, a variety of WikiLeaks sources are concerned when that kind of thing happens.
Walking home from his girlfriend's house, I guess, in Washington, D.C., early in the morning, maybe potentially on his way to meet with the FBI on the 2,000-plus email leak that proved that the DNC, that brought down Debbie Wasserman Schultz, that the Democratic Party was actively working against Bernie Sanders and his supporters the entire freaking time. The death of Seth Rich and others like John Ashe, who accidentally crushed his own throat so he couldn't speak days before testifying against the Clintons while bench pressing at his house. The former president of the United Nations. These are high-profile figures, people. The former president of the United Nations, allegedly involved in some kind of bribing scandal that potentially linked Hillary Rodham Clinton and her husband. In fact, the accusation is John Ashe had been funneling in hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, to a previous Bill Clinton administration campaign. The death of Sean Lucas, a third person, again, the body bags just keep on piling, also dead, riling the Bernie Sanders supporters. By the way, Bernie Sanders just bought, I think it's not a second, but it's a third home in Vermont on the lake for roughly $600,000. You see, he's a socialist that really is a capitalist. He's got lots of money, obviously, and needs not just a second, but a third home on a lake in Vermont. But that's beside the point, because Julian Assange just dropped a major bombshell, if you're to take his word for it. Again, insinuating that his leakers take great risks, and then specifically mentions Seth Rich. They talk about, that scandal that makes up the DNC leak, because people like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who, by the way, now has a position with Hillary Rodham Clinton, because Hillary protects her own. Notice how she does that, even when they commit criminal, illegal acts. Now, Julian Assange warned just about a week ago that he had damning information, that he was potentially going to bring down Hillary Rodham Clinton. The question is this enough? Are there enough body bags yet? Many of you probably remember, maybe some of you that are older, remember Vince Foster. Again, there's a long laundry list of dead people linked to Hillary Rodham Clinton and her husband. But will this also be just shifted under the rug, like some of these other cases that we've seen through history? Potentially, this is very damning information if Julian Assange is to be believed. You know, I talk about the fact that we've got to question everything. We've got to even question the leaker. Not just Julian Assange, but people like Edward Snowden, as we are engaged in this full frontal propaganda war that makes up this conspiracy web today. Again, I don't think it's a coincidence, personally, just using my gut instinct, that people like John Ashe would accidentally drop a barbell on their throat. I mean, think about the metaphor there, showing any other informant or somebody that would potentially talk that he can no longer speak, his voice, dead. I think he was in his 50s. Seth Rich, a 27-year-old DNC staffer who was allegedly robbed, yet they didn't take his wallet or his cell phone or anything of value. They just killed him.
Senseless.
Seth Rich's parents looking for answers after he was shot and killed in Washington, D.C. Sunday morning.
If it was a robbery, it failed because he still had his watch, he still had his money, he still had his credit cards, he still had his phone. So it was a wasted effort, except we lost a life.
Conspiracies? Or are these direct links? And are these linkages back? People like Sean Lucas, Vince Foster, and others throughout history, does this all link back to Hillary Rodham Clinton with the potential intention of just shutting these people up? I've never seen such a dogmatic, evil presidential race in my entire life. I'm a pretty young guy, but I've never seen this before in history. The dogma, how angry people are, how they're playing into this hook, line, and sinker, just this war of the two parties, even though it's an illusion and it's just a one-party system. I mean, even Bernie Sanders bent over to Hillary Rodham Clinton. He essentially endorsed her months and months and months ago. I mean, I predicted this. I mean, he's not even a socialist, just bought a third home, for $600,000 in Vermont. I've never seen the anger like this before. Even though it's all a media circus, it is just political theater to divide the country. People like George Soros are behind this. Again, they even forecasted through foreshadowing with their own words, saying that there would be a day of rage in America. I'm paraphrasing a bit. And all of this has come to pass. At the same time, countries like Russia and China are building up for war. There was a report that came out that I read earlier this morning suggesting, and again, this is a propaganda convoluted conspiracy web, that Russia's testing out all their new technology in Crimea. All these weapons of war, not just these propaganda weapons, but technological weapons of war, the ability to send mass text to a community right before Vladimir Putin potentially bombs it, to create chaos, to create panic. All of this leads to war, geopolitically, economically, physically, spiritually. This is what we're dealing with. This is how deep the rabbit hole goes. This is how evil these people are. Julian Assange just said it, folks, live on Dutch television. Essentially linked Hillary Rodham Clinton and her campaign to the death of 27-year-old staffer Seth Rich, and the mainstream media barely says a freaking peep. Zilch. Nada. Well, you heard it here. You heard it here at AMTV, Alternative Media Television. We're not afraid to speak the truth. We've got cojones. We've got balls. The truth is unpopular, my friends. You're not always going to like what I have to say. But it's the truth. And it's my job as a speaker of that truth to call it like it is, to speak my mind, and then let you investigate and decide for yourself. Links, sources, attached below. 3 high-profile deaths in the wake of this recent scandal, which all mysteriously and conveniently link back to Hillary Rodham Clinton. Again, a bombshell! A bombshell was just dropped by Julian Assange. I'm Christopher Green. Get it out everywhere. Make it viral. Hard-hitting it in your face. And click the link below to buy a t-shirt. Support AMTV, alternative media television.